This is the Swedish rocket stove. As you can see, it burns like a rocket. I've built this one just using an axe. It's not that difficult and it doesn't take a long time. You don't really need any of the special tools. Just an axe is more than enough. It does have a crack, but this is usually a good indicator that the log is fairly dry. I will try to split the log alongside the crack. Miss. It's harder to get it right with the small axe, but it does work. If you want to make sure that you don't misplace all the 4 pieces that you're gonna have, you can use a piece of charcoal and just make a simple note. Like you can do like write numbers, whatever helps you to know exactly where they are. And it's also important to use the same ends of the log. Now we're gonna carve the tunnel, and what I like to do is to leave a piece at the bottom of the stove. Now we should have a tunnel, and since we marked them exactly where they should go. Next step is to choose 2 pieces where you want to have your intake tunnel. And you can just keep them like this on the same side, so you can match them. I'm going to mark it. What I've noticed is that the air intake, it's much better if the hole, the tunnel, is at an angle. So you want it to go from the bottom to go slightly upwards. Here I'm going to do the same thing. So I have a rough idea of where I need to chop. You can actually use a saw to make these cuts. This would make the work easier and more precise, but the title of the video is how to make it with just an axe. So we're just gonna use an axe. I'm going to use the same chopping technique. I'm gonna keep the wood at a slight angle, and we'll try to follow the marks. Just make sure you don't hit it too strong, so you just cut all the way through. You don't want that. You just want the tunnel. If you want, you can use one of the pieces to hold it. And let's have a test. You have the intake hole and the tunnel. All you need to do now is to tie it together and light it. But there's one more thing that we could add to it to make it perfect. When you're cooking on it, placing a pot on top of it will seal all the gaps, making the stove not working efficiently. Normally what you would do is to place some rocks on top of it, like three or four rocks, or some nails to keep the pot a bit higher, so the flame can come up. You will still have an airflow under it. But if you don't have rocks or nails, there's something else you can do, and it still involves just an axe. From each side you will cut a chunk. You can even go as far and cut half of it, like so. This part will be removed. You go on to the next piece, do the same on the opposite side. Next piece, the same, the opposite, and next one, the same on the opposite. After you remove these parts, there will be a gap between them on the top, so there will be airflow. Now this is another part where you can use the saw, and it makes it easier and safer. And remember that we left a chunk, so the bottom is sealed. This means we can place it anywhere, even on grass, and we won't burn the ground or the grass or whatever there is. The next step is to tie the pieces together so they stay locked like this. Because of the way it's built, you could also just bury it a bit in the ground and it would stay, but I prefer to tie it. Of course, the best thing to use is wire. I don't have wire, so I'm going to use a piece of string, which eventually it will burn, but not in the first half hour or even an hour or so. And if you make sure to wet the string from time to time, especially on the spots where you will see the flames coming out, because eventually you will have flames going out on the side, then the string should last for a really long time. Because it's not wire, I'm not gonna tie, I will try to tie the string under the intake hole, as you will have some flames going up here. It will burn through the rope quite fast. You might have the string a bit loose. If you don't like that, you can just use the pieces you chopped off and make it tighter. You can use the bit you've chopped off to light the stove. I prefer to use a cotton pad, which is covered with beeswax. It will take a bit of time until it will start burning properly. If you want, you can also give it a bit of a push. Slide the small pieces inside. It will help create the heat it needs to start burning properly like a stove. Up here it's already burning, It might look like a lot of work, but actually it only took me like 15 minutes to do it, and it really worth doing it, because if you cook like a pot of stew or something that takes a long time, you would need way more wood than one log. And with this one log, you can actually cook for a couple of hours, maybe even more. The other cool thing is that you can easily cook on it without burning your hands, the way it would happen on a normal open fire. You can also just make a coffee, a breakfast, and then just take it apart, let the fire die out, and you can, if you want to reuse it, you can just put it back together, light the fire again. So with just one log, you are extremely efficient at cooking, and you don't need a lot of wood. I've just boiled 3 liters of water for demonstration purposes. Works pretty nice.